Jin-soo, a little child, is being tormented by his bullies, but the cause of the torment is unbelievable. Because his bullies had been harassing him for the whole year, they were told that Jin-soo attempted suicide. The bullies don't think twice about severely beating him, but Jin-soo will fight back this time. He suddenly begins acting in a really odd way. The bullies are able to stop him when he tries to attack them. Jin-soo eventually charges at them and is hurled from the roof, plummeting to the ground several stories below. His father, Mr. Lee, checks in shortly after learning that his son is in the hospital. Jin-soo breaks down in tears when he sees his son because he was unable to defend himself again. But when he remembers the episode, his perspective begins to shift. He declares that someone must die in order for him to exact his retribution. He begins to transform into a zombie as his anger increases. Mr. Lee closes the room's curtains and beats the zombie with a hefty book because he knows he must take action. After that, he carries Jin-soo's body in a case. The case suddenly gets underway since Jin-soo seems to be still alive. At Hyosun High School, the following day begins as any other. Mr. Lee demonstrates to us that he is a professor at the same high school by going about his day as everyone else. Hyunju, a female, awakens after class. She gripes because her classmates don't wake her up. She hears some strange banging noises coming from the lab, which is owned by Mr. Lee, the biology instructor at the school, as she walks through the hallways. Hyunju chooses to investigate and goes into the laboratory. She follows the sound and finds a hamster in a cage. She takes off the top and strokes the hamster, but it bites her. When Hyunju's finger starts to bleed, she decides to visit the infirmary and replaces the cage's lid. Meanwhile, there is blood on the floor when Mr. Lee walks inside the lab. After that, he seizes the girl, carries her back to the lab, and restrains her. Meanwhile, one of Chong-san's closest friends, Jiang-soo, approaches him as he is making his way to the school's exit. He wants to go to his mother's restaurant and sample the chicken, so he asks Chong-san about it. Two of their female students, Onjo and Isaac, then greet the guys. The four of them make the decision to visit the restaurant and sample the cuisine. When they do, Chong-san's mother waits patiently at the side of their table for their critique while treating them to a delicious supper. The rumors a girl spread about the institution, however, are what the kids are more concerned about. She thinks Mr. Lee has a corpse-like odor. Another man named Hyun-soo witnesses a gang of bullies removing a male and a female student from the classroom the following day. It's true that the bullies made the girl strip while forcing the male student to film her. They do this as the male who is filming the girl is captured on camera. When Hyun-soo tries to step in and assist the pupils, the bullies threaten to post the girl's video if he does. The two kids rejoin the group of bullies because they fear humiliation in front of others. Onjo wants to approach Hyun-soo as he leaves, but she isn't in the mood for it. She summons all her bravery, though, and interrupts him on the stairs. When school is out, she wants to meet him on the roof. The guy asks Onjo if she wants to fight him, but he has no idea that she likes him. To tell him something, Onjo is adamant about the after-school rendezvous. Mississippi Park arrives in class a few minutes later, but before she begins her talk, she asks the pupils if they have any updates on Hyunju, the missing girl. Mississippi Park worries why none of the kids called her during the break, as they don't know where she is. Mississippi Park asks Mr. Lee if he knows anything during their brief conversation. We can see that Mr. Lee has an idea, even though he acts as though he doesn't. We can see that the girl is restrained by Mr. Lee. Lee tapes himself discussing a virus as soon as he sits in front of his lab desk, describing how it attempts to survive in the bodies it infects. Before administering one of the medications to Hyunju, he also lists a few that might prevent the virus from growing. As the day goes on normally and Mississippi Park goes back to her lesson, Hyunju begins to turn into a zombie as the virus takes possession. Back in class, Hae-soo, a female, complains of excruciating stomach ache and requests to see a doctor. Hyunju raps on the door of the classroom as soon as she exits. Mississippi Park opens the door for her, but Hyunju falls to the ground. Mississippi Park is assisted by a few of the students in getting Hyunju to the infirmary. As soon as they bring her in, the doctor starts working on her. Hyunju is out of her mind and appears to be suffering a bizarre seizure while her body jerks spontaneously. She says she was brought into Mr. Lee's laboratory. As the kids assist in keeping her under control, the doctor eventually manages to administer an injection. Following the doctor's call for an ambulance, Hyunju is transported to the hospital. For the time being, Mississippi Park requests that her students keep this occurrence a secret. But as soon as Isaac gets back to class, the entire class huddles around her, curious about what transpired. Hyunju was transported to the hospital, she informs them, but she also remarks that she smelt like a corpse. Hae-soo, meantime, finds it difficult to gather herself, and because no one is around to assist her, she chooses to leave. In another scene, she stops Hyuk-soo while he is walking back to class with An-jo. She stretches out her arm to offer him her name tag. This can only mean one thing, Hyuk-soo realizes. An-jo is asking him out. An-jo affirms it, but Chong-san quickly cuts them off in their chat. After observing their closeness, Hyuk-soo asks Chong-san if he is dating An-jo as An-jo leaves. Chong-san clarifies, however, that he and An-jo are childhood friends who reside in adjacent flats. When Mr. Lee returns to his lab in the interim, he is shocked to discover that Hyunju has left. He is caught by Mississippi Park and Mr. Kong, another teacher, who plan to take him to the principal. The two teachers won't let Mr. Lee go, despite his insistence that he must. The principal is irritated with Mr. Lee in his office since he kidnapped a pupil so near to the dates of the school assessment. Although Mississippi Park has already informed the authorities, he requests that the teachers keep this occurrence a secret until the end of the evaluation period. Detective Jae-wook enters a minute later and takes Mr. Lee into custody. The doctor in the infirmary begins to feel ill and remembers that Hyunju bit her when she was attempting to assist her. She has a large bite mark on her forearm and is exhibiting viral symptoms. Hyuk goes outside and tries to speak with Namare, the school's top student. Namare, the class president, says that her mother's substantial donation to the school was the only reason she was elected president. Since he obviously likes her, Hyuk attempts to joke around with her, but Namare is uninterested. Two of the bullies' boys return to the school and notice the doctor behaving oddly. One of them uses his phone to record the event. They are able to evade the frantic attack from the doctor. In spite of this, the doctor gets back up and begins attacking other pupils after biting and devouring one of them. The bitten bully spreads mayhem as he rushes for the others. The fact that anyone who gets bitten becomes a zombie becomes evident. The infection is spreading quickly. Eun-ji, the victim of bullying, stands at the edge of the school's roof, contemplating suicide. She feels she cannot handle the strain and is afraid of being humiliated in public. She is approached by the bullied boy, who tries to talk her out of it. Eun-ji asks him if he likes her after noticing that he is crying. The kid admits it, but Eun-ji coldly adds that if two losers date each other, they will create a loser pair, which would be even more miserable. When she witnesses others jumping out of the windows, Eun-ji changes her mind and turns back once more. While Hyuk-soo snatches Namare and flees with her, Hae-soo is leaving the school. Isaac, who is acquainted with Hyuk-soo, arranges for An-jo to speak with Chong-san at the school cafeteria. Despite feeling a little uncomfortable, An-jo asks Chong-san if Hyuk-soo likes her. Chong-san finds it odd to hear this. Even though he and An-jo are only friends, maybe he subconsciously thinks An-jo should remain unmarried forever. When they witness a group of zombies attempting to storm into the cafeteria, their talk comes to an abrupt halt. Lots of kids are already zombies who are ravenous for human brains. A zombie pins An-jo down as mayhem breaks out, but Chong-san saves her, and the two of them work to find a way out. Regretfully, a lot of other pupils are consumed. The fire prevention system kicks in when someone sounds the fire alarm, making the floor slick. An-jo follows Chong-san as he finds a window and makes his getaway via it. One of the remaining bullies, GW Nam, fights to stay alive in the cafeteria but eventually makes it into the kitchen, where he manages to hide. Chong-san and An-jo observe complete mayhem outside. They witness a group of zombie students being struck by an erratically speeding truck. They utilize it to go back inside the building when the truck crashes. An-jo locates a fire extinguisher and uses it to stop the zombies from pinning Chong-san to the ground. After some time, the two pupils return to a classroom that is watched by other pupils. Hyuk-soo and Namare are once more outside looking for a safe spot when they spot the gardener fending off some zombies. Sadly, the man gets devoured. So Hyuk-soo enters the same classroom as Chong-san and On-jo using the gardener's ladder. Namare climbs after him, and the ladder is taken down by the angry zombies. Since no one outside the school is aware of what is going on, Hyunju's arrival at the hospital in the meanwhile is probably bad news. Detective Jae-wook interviews Mr. Lee about the girl's kidnapping after bringing him to the interrogation room. Mr. Lee acknowledges that he was attempting to hide the virus he invented. He describes an experiment in which he put a mouse and a cat in the same room. The majority of the mice were afraid, but sometimes one would get so frightened that it would fight back with all of its strength. Lee aimed to develop a gene that would trigger a fight reaction in those who were afraid or angry. Lee created cells to force his son to fight because he was being bullied and never retaliated. But the experiment failed, and his son succumbed to the illness. Hyunju is put through an MRI scanner in the hospital, but the virus takes over. She leaps to her feet and begins devouring humans. Unaware that they will soon turn into zombies as well, the hospital staff flees in fear. A van transporting the archery squad from Hyosun High School nearly hits Haisu as she walks the streets aimlessly. The children discover that Isaac has a phone when they return to the school. Using it, Chong-san calls the police and informs them that zombies have taken over the school. The operator finds it difficult to believe him and tells falsehoods, such as, "Police will be sent soon." Another operator comments that they got the identical call after hanging up. When a third operator gets a call from the hospital, things get serious. Is this apocalypse of zombies real? On-jo phones her father, So-ju, a fireman and first responder, in the classroom because she thinks the police might not believe them. So-ju gets his team together and goes to assist. The children are somewhat relieved when Mr. Kong suddenly enters the room because they believe that having a teacher there will make them safer. Isaac observes that Kang's arm has been bitten, though. The children ignore Kang's demands to listen to him and his attempts to reassure them that it isn't a bite. Kong bites another female shortly after transforming into a zombie. 2 more zombies have entered the classroom, and the pupils must now contend with them. They are able to repel the zombies and guide them out of the classroom in spite of the awful circumstances. It's difficult to run through the hallways because additional zombies are attacking the pupils. Acting like a ninja, Hyuk-soo defeats the undead by demonstrating his amazing martial arts abilities. The other pupils, meanwhile, repel the zombies by using a wooden door as a shield. But as soon as the pupils begin to grow weary, On-jo breaks into another classroom and gives them a makeshift place to stay. Regretfully, On-jo dropped her cell phone. Tensions increase as the gang starts to lose hope. Na-yeon is one of the gals who acts badly by arguing with Ji-young all the time. His family is impoverished and on welfare, which is why she hates him. Since Hyuk-soo hasn't arrived in the classroom with them, the tension is higher. Gwi-nam and 2 other classmates are hiding in the kitchen in the meantime. But because she wouldn't stop crying, he sends one of them out to be devoured by the zombies. 3 more students are hiding in the restrooms elsewhere. Min-ji, one of them, turns out to be tough and resourceful. Min-ji gets ready to attack, fearing that one of the other girls hiding with her will become a zombie. As anticipated, Min-ji puts a sharpened broomstick in the girl's mouth when she transforms into a zombie. But the zombie doesn't give up and fights back. Min-ji is saved at that same moment when Hari from the archery team shows up and pierces the zombie with an arrow. In another scene, Ms. Park enters the local radio broadcasting station at the school. She broadcasts a message to the kids, acknowledging the dreadful situation but pushing them to stay alive no matter what. The zombies rush toward the speakers carrying Ms. Park's voice during her broadcast, demonstrating their attraction to sound. Devastated by everything that is going on around her, On-jo is taking a minute to herself in the classroom. Isaac, her best friend, tries to reassure her that they will survive this ordeal by saying brave and hopeful things. But before she turns, On-jo observes that Isaac's hands are frigid, same like Hyunju's. According to Isaac, she was most likely bitten in the ankle on the way to the classroom. Isaac soon starts to transform into a zombie. As Isaac becomes unrecognizable and attacks, Chong-san swiftly yanks On-jo away. Chong-san pushes Isaac in the direction of the window after tackling her. On-jo, who recognizes her childhood buddy in Isaac, keeps her from falling down the perilous ledge. Knowing what needs to be done, Chong-san snatches a stool and coerces the zombie into letting go of Onjo's hands. When Isaac falls, Onjo is saddened. There is nothing anyone can say to reassure her. Unable to discover a way out, Hyuk-soo continues to hide from the zombies. The zombies are battling to get inside the classroom again. Chong-san comes up with a scheme after realizing they can't keep them at bay for very long. He connects nooses to a water hose he takes from the hallway. The first person to use it is Soo-hyang, who descends to the radio studio and locates Ms. Park. The other pupils come next. She leaves a letter for Hyuk-soo in case he arrives to the classroom later before Namare descends. Chong-san assists Onjo in going to the studio after Namare. Chong-san is forced out the window when the zombies suddenly burst into the classroom and jump on him. Meanwhile, Hyuk-soo slips out of the classroom after being discovered by the zombies. Fortunately, he spots a zombie clinging to Chong-san's legs as he hangs from the hose. Hyuk-soo hops onto the hose and helps Chong-san get rid of the zombie. They arrive to the radio studio together. Ms. Park steps in and breaks up the altercation as Nayeon hits Ji-young once more in the studio for no apparent reason. The pupils choose to search the internet for any news using the computer in the studio. Hee-soo, meantime, exhibits incredible fortitude by giving birth to a child by herself. When she brings her infant outside later, she discovers that everything is in utter disarray. She nearly gets struck by a police car, but she quickly discovers that the driver has become a zombie. Hee-soo, unsure of what to do, concludes that running away is the best option. The pupils watch a video of the police car incident back in the studio. They are horrified when the hose suddenly moves and shatters the window of the studio. It turns out that a zombie trapped in the hose's nooses is the reason it has been moving. Chong-san uses a broom to try to push the zombie away, but Hyuk-soo breaks it and impales the undead instead. At last, Ji-young seizes the CPU of the computer and hurls it at the zombie, causing it to fall freely. Soo-ju has been unable to get to the high school at another location since his rescue squad has been called in to save a group of powerful politicians. Some of these politicians have already become zombies, which is unfortunate. When Namare sees blood streaming from Ji-young's nose in the studio, she demands that he leave the room immediately to avoid him becoming a zombie. But Ji-young clarifies that as Hyuk-soo was battling the undead, the broomstick struck his nose. After noticing a scratch on his palm, Namare says she witnessed the zombie grabbing hold of him and scratching him. Ms. Park advises Ji-young to spend some time by himself in the recording room in order to safely handle the situation and prevent him from becoming a zombie. Ji-young should be alright if he doesn't transform in the 10 minutes it generally takes for someone to turn. In the meantime, GWI-nam is still using everyone nearby as bait to keep the zombies away from him in the kitchen, essentially sacrificing others to ensure his own life. In another scene, Chong-san's mother watches the news and worries a great deal for her son. When she calls the school, no one picks up. She can't stay still, so she hops on a scooter and rides from a restaurant to the school. Significant obstacles are also being faced by Soo-ju's squad. The team has been forced to restrain one of its members after he was bitten by a politician. With zombies appearing everywhere, the city has turned into a battleground. The government issues an evacuation order, urging residents to leave the city and relocate to the next one, and massive police forces are stationed in the streets to keep the infected at bay. After 30 minutes, Ms. Park returns to the studio and tells Ji-young it's okay to leave the recording room. But Ji-young is upset and won't go until an hour has gone by. As they urge Nayeon to apologize to Ji-young, the other students turn against her. Nayeon gives in to the pressure and goes into the recording room, attempting to use a piece of cloth to clean Ji-young's scrape. But instead of saying she's sorry, she says she hates him. As they leave the recording room, Chong-san becomes enraged at Nayeon, and everyone blames her for her harsh actions. Ji-young, whose nose is still bleeding, is the focus of Nayeon's attention. Ji-young eventually starts to change into a zombie. When Ji-young realizes what's occurring, he tries to leave the room by himself before converting completely, but he isn't quick enough. He attacks the students after turning into a zombie. By humming a song they used to sing together, Chong-san diverts his attention and calls Ji-young's attention to the window. Chong-san leaps onto the hose and swings in midair, protecting Hyuk-soo as she charges at Ji-young. Chong-san watches in horror as his old friend gets up and flees with the other zombies, while Ji-young ends up on the ground. As a swarm of zombies pursues her, Hee-soo fights to keep her infant alive. Knowing that she is going to change, she seeks safety in an unknown building. To protect the child, Hee-soo confines herself and her infant in a safe place. To make sure she won't harm her child, she ties herself up just before turning. Meanwhile, Soo-ju starts to worry more and more about his daughter and makes frantic attempts to phone her. Soo-ju doesn't get a response because his daughter misplaced her phone. Rather, he receives a call from his superiors telling him to reach the roof of the building because a helicopter is en route to collect them. Namare confronts and slaps Na-yeon in the studio. She accuses Na-yeon of killing Ji-young, saying she witnessed her purposefully infecting him by rubbing a napkin on the bloody broomstick that was used to kill the hanging zombie and then using the same napkin on Ji-young's scratch. Namare challenges Na-yeon to apply the napkin to a gash on her leg, but she refutes the charge. Na-yeon is furious and acts as like she will agree, but she changes her mind at the last second. The pupils are furious at Na-yeon, but Ms. Park steps in and stops her. Chong-san, scarcely able to control his rage, pushes her to the ground. Na-yeon chooses to quit the studio after feeling alienated. Feeling awful about the state of affairs, Ms. Park gives the kids two instructions: to live and to prevent the death of others. She then goes outdoors with Na-yeon and assists her in avoiding the zombies that are after her. In another scene, a streamer who appears to have lost his mind goes live while attempting to flee the zombies. After all, everyone spends their last days in a unique way. When Chong-san's mother gets close to the school, she notices Ji-young aimlessly strolling around. She goes up to him to inquire about her kid, not realizing that he has become a zombie. Unfortunately, the zombies attack and devour her. A helicopter hovers above the school at the same moment, but it doesn't pause to look for survivors. It just looks around the zombie-infested yard. Inside the school, the kids talk about what they did, and some of them say they don't feel bad about making Na-yeon leave. They think she deserved it since she was a bad person. Eun-ji and another student are secure on the roof because the zombies can't get to them. Hunesai asks the youngster whether he has ever considered doing something bad and cynically declares that everyone deserves to die. The child acknowledges that his time at school has been awful and expresses his wish for the school to burn down while everyone is inside. Soo-ju talks with a lawmaker about their choices in a different building. They have to get to the roof before the chopper arrives. There are no workable options, notwithstanding the politician's concern for the lives of her employees. After breaking out of the kitchen of the school, Gwinam battles his way to the main building. He avoids zombies until he gets to the principal's office, where more zombies are waiting. Unfazed, he murders them all with a kitchen knife. Min-ji and her crew discuss their next course of action in the restrooms. Hari disagrees with Min-ji's suggestion to try to flee. The boys intervene to break up the altercation before it turns into a physical altercation. The previous broadcaster, meantime, miraculously escapes several zombie encounters. But when he finds himself in a playground full of zombie kids, his luck runs out. These tiny zombies are unlikely to let him go, given how eager children are typically to acquire candy. Detective Jake tries to reason with Lee in the police station by asking him how they can stop the turmoil. As Lee shares the reason behind his actions, their conversation becomes more intimate. Lee talks about his time working as a teacher and how he saw his son being harassed by the CCTV. Because the victims were too scared to speak up, the bullies went unpunished even after reporting the events. The principal made a concerted effort to conceal the truth, which made the situation worse. After his son tried the unimaginable one night, Lee hurried to the hospital. His son was unable to defend himself against his tormentors and began crying every day after that. Anger and desperation drove Lee to develop a virus that would force people to defend themselves. Lee icily replies that there is no antidote when Detective Jaek asks him if there is, saying that everyone deserves to die. Jaek is frustrated and wants to punch Lee, but he restrains himself because of his position. Rather, he evacuates the police station with Lee in tow. Jaek must battle to survive because the station has already been invaded by zombies. Observing the confusion firsthand, Lee chooses to assist the investigator after noticing his difficulties. But during the altercation, Lee gets bitten. Lee, realizing that he has little chance for himself, tells the detective to go to the high school and get his laptop because it is the only source of information, despite Jaek's attempts to lure him away. As a last gesture of selflessness, Lee lets Jaek escape by using his body as a shield. Jaek observes his fellow officers fighting the undead in vain as he dashes outdoors. When he finds another officer hiding, he assists him. In an effort to find a solution and end the nightmare, the two decide to go to the high school together. At first light, the pupils return to the school. They look out, but nothing has changed. The zombies are still roaming around aimlessly, prepared to attack any living creature. Minji and Hari continue to argue on what should be done in the restrooms. Determining to trust her gut, Hari and her archer companion go outside. Minji takes her own companion and follows them since she can't bear to leave them. Eunji is confronted with yet another startling discovery on the roof. In order to stop a video of Eunji from being uploaded, GWI pressured the other harassed youngster into paying money, the boy admits. The video was scheduled to post automatically, and GWI would only stop it if the boy paid him. Yesterday, the lad delivered the money, but it was not delivered because of the zombie outbreak. Determined to prevent the upload of the footage, Hunesai dashes into the main building. Chong-san, meantime, becomes more and more concerned that nobody will come to their aid. He thinks that calling for assistance is their only option, but doing so requires them to get their phones out of the instructor's room. Soo-hyuk follows him after agreeing. Eunji gets assaulted and bitten by zombies while she is rushing through the hallways. Strangely enough, though, the zombies cease attacking her as if they recognize her as one of their own. Eunji, who has half changed, walks into the instructor's room and begins slamming phones without identifying which ones belong to GWI. Soo-hyuk and Chong-sen also enter the room at this point, attempting to keep quiet. When Chong-san tries to seize an undamaged phone, Eunji spots him and attacks, warning the zombies around them that they are there. The boys are forced to separate as chaos breaks out and the room becomes a war. Chong-san takes a phone and flees by the hallways, while Soo-hyuk cautiously makes his way to safety by climbing out a window. GWI is seen dozing off in the principal's office while the cowardly principal, who has been lurking behind his desk, slips out. The principal gives GWI his car keys and tells him to go get the automobile when he wakes up. Unwilling to put his life in danger for the principal, GWI recommends that they accompany each other. GWI snatches his knife and threatens to keep quiet when the principal objects, claiming that he would even kill the last boss if this were a video game. The principal is now at GWI mercy, indicating a blatant inversion of roles. In another scene, the rescue team comes up with a scheme to bring the lawmakers to the roof. But for the plan to succeed, everyone must do their share. The politician's secretary is horrified to learn that the roof door is locked as they dash up the stairs. To let Soju know about the closed door, the secretary dashes back down. In order to save time, Soju and his partner hurry to the door that leads to the roof. Everyone cracks it open and rushes to the roof. To make sure the chopper sees them, Soju ignites a flare and closes the door behind them. The helicopter makes a flawless landing. Desperate to get away from the undead, Chong-san is back at the school building. GWI is seen tying up the principal when he storms into his office. The bully doesn't seem to want to let the principal go, despite the principal pleading with Chong-san for assistance. Taking out his phone, Chong-san begins filming GWI and threatens to give the footage to the police if GWI doesn't let the principal go. The principal tries to flee while the two lads argue, but GWI fatally stabs him. GWI continues, turning on Chong-san. Chong-san, in contrast to the principal, escapes by rushing out of the office. As GWI pursues Chong-san down the hallways, zombies occasionally step in to provide Chong-san the opportunity to get some distance. Hari and other students are battling for their lives in the meantime. Hari quickly discovers that she is running low on arrows, which may be a serious issue. For safety, her group chooses to lock itself in a different classroom. The government imposes martial law, and the military assumes power as the virus spreads across the nation. Anjo becomes quite nervous when Soo-hyuk eventually rejoins the other pupils, but without Chong-san. GWI is still pursuing Chong-san assiduously in an attempt to take his phone. There is just one boy alive when Chong-san rushes into the library. Chong-san uses cunning to get up on the bookcases and avoid the zombies. But then GWI-nam shows up and starts frantically pursuing him. To avoid him, Chong-san must jump from shelf to shelf. Without mercy, GWI-nam snatches the other boy and tosses him to the zombies to make room for himself. GWI-nam eventually overtakes Chong-san and pins him against a bookshelf. Chong-san declines his demand for the phone. Chong-san uses the phone to stab GWI-nam in the eye out of desperation. Chong-san has the opportunity to push GWI-nam off the shelf when he falters due to the intense agony. GWI-nam is devoured by the swarming zombies. Chong-san is then targeted by the undead, but he escapes the library unharmed. Ignorant that a zombie has seized his leg, he scales a heating system duct. The zombie is killed when Hari and her group emerge in the hallway at the same moment. They go into a different classroom in search of protection, but they are still ignorant of Chong-san's existence. The group locates a PC in the classroom but encounters a sluggish internet connection. Chong-san attempts to call at the same time but is unsuccessful because of poor reception. A military official acknowledges the worsening situation in a public statement outside the pandemonium. The government has chosen to impose internet access restrictions in an effort to stop the spread of false information on the internet. Until Hari's archer friend tries to access his social media accounts and gets a notice saying that the internet is unavailable, the students are not aware of this. This makes it official. The pupils are no longer able to communicate with anyone outside of the school. Unable to stop crying, Anjo is extremely concerned about Chong-san and her father. She asks Young if they may search the school for survivors using the drone from the tech lab. Young affirms that they can, but they have to get it first. Young and Anjo immediately scale multiple stories to retrieve the drone. Detective Jaek and his officer, meanwhile, are having difficulty navigating the city's zombie-infested streets in order to reach the school. As zombies relentlessly hunt them down, they find a restaurant and hide inside. It turns out that Isian had previously brought her infant to this same eatery. They are shocked to learn that Isian has become a zombie while the infant is still alive. Returning to the school, Chong-san flees the heating duct and ends up in a different classroom. Simultaneously, Young and Anjo manage to get the drone back and rejoin the other pupils. In an attempt to find Chong-san, the kids set up the drone and fly it throughout the school. Everyone is still struggling to stay alive. It's time for Hari and her friends to try to make an escape. Before leaping out of a window, they use their arrows to kill a number of zombies. Young uses the drone to spot Chong-san in the meanwhile. In order to gauge the situation, the pupils also look to the streets outside the school. Unfortunately, one of the female students can identify the car that belongs to her parents. The youngster realizes her parents are dead and starts crying as Young brings the drone closer. But zombies quickly tear down the drone. In another location, the politicians and Soju's crew are brought to a secure location. Everything is now under military control, and everybody entering the facility needs to be examined and placed in quarantine. When GWI-nam wakes up, the zombies charge at him, but they stop when they smell him, thinking he is one of them. This is just another odd episode that happens back at the school. After realizing that the zombies are no longer attacking him, GWI-nam declares his intention to murder Chong-san. The same is true with Inju, who is afflicted despite having a human appearance. The virus appears to be changing. Later, Jimin, the girl who lost her parents, tries suicide but is stopped by her classmates. Namare enters the recording room and interrupts Inju as she tries to comfort them. She proposes that by playing sounds in particular parts of the school, the students can utilize the speakers to attract the zombies in any direction. Hyuk tells Chong-san that they are coming for him and that he should remain where he is. After that, the pupils implemented their plan. The group carefully follows a zombie that is hammering itself against the wall after drawing the others away. But when a zombie sees them, Hyuk remains to combat it. After getting involved and killing the zombie, GWI-nam tries to kill Hyuk. When they begin fighting, GWI-nam is too powerful. When Namare tries to assist, the bully zombie bites her. Finally, Hyuk pushes GWI-nam out of the window as he charges at him. All of the pupils arrive in Chong-san's classroom following a furious run. They are unaware that Naeon is concealed in the classroom, which is likewise stocked with supplies, behind the locked second door. The group quickly discovers that Namare has been bitten, despite having a small opportunity to relax. The politician is informed by Soju that he needs to leave the building in order to locate his daughter. Soju and his friend beat up the 3 soldiers who come to deliver them lunch, dress like them, and go outside acting like soldiers. The children in the new classroom start arguing about Namare. Hyuk informs them about Gwinam, but Chong-san feels that they should expel her before it's too late. He was infected, yet he was still human. Namare will also remain human because she was bitten by him. Chong-san finds this hard to believe because he witnessed the zombies consuming Gwinam. Anyway, Hyuk leads Namare to the window and threatens to eject her if she becomes a zombie. Minji speaks briefly with her friend, who has a leg injury, in another enclosed area. He claims that since they had little hope of making it out, he should never have listened to her. He should quit whining like a kid, Minji says him. Chong-san tries to attack Namare after she begins to transform into a zombie. The 2 lads begin fighting after Hyuk stands up for her. The rest of their students, however, intervene, pointing out that Namare hasn't fully become a zombie. She is still human and conscious. Jimin declares that Namare must depart nevertheless, but Inju remind her that Ms. Park warned them not to allow another group member to perish. Namare begins to move toward the exit since she doesn't want them to fight. Hyuk restrains her, though, and ties his arm to hers. The others will have enough time to flee if Namare changes, because he will be the first person she bites. The investigator and his cop, meanwhile, make the decision to depart from the eatery. When the group spots a young girl running through the streets, they stop. They return to the restaurant after saving her. Doik is unable to just leave the girl because her mother has become a zombie. Back in school, the pupils are talking about thirst and hunger. They would be delighted to have some snacks and drinks. Nayeon watches the materials in the room as she listens to them. She hears the pupils wondering if there will be food behind the door, so she pauses before opening it. With his partner's assistance, Soju scales a big wall at the camp. But he has to get past one final barrier to security. As the other soldiers shot at him, he flees after attacking one of them. The pupils choose to burst the door open when they return to the school, but the zombies become more hostile as a result of the disturbance. As the zombies grow increasingly determined, they give up. Jimin records a message for the world on a camera that just so happens to be nearby. When Jo's turn comes, she records a message for her father, who is attempting to elude the military, and all the other students do the same. As her father dives into the sea while soldiers continue to fire at him, she prays he's all right. He is struck by one of the shots. In the city of Hyacinth, nothing has changed. Although it is impossible, police officers are dispatched to clear as many areas of the city as they can. There are zombies everywhere, and they even pose a threat to spread their infection to other cities. Soju emerges from a lake and examines Jo's father's torso. He keeps searching for his daughter despite the fact that his wound is very minor. When they return to the high school, Soju gives Hyuk and Namare the camera so they can speak if they so choose. Thankfully, Namare has not yet become a zombie, but the 2 children are still bound together. Despite being infected, Namare is able to preserve her human side because the virus has changed. Eunji is traversing the hallways somewhere else. She and Namare are in the same state. She chooses to investigate an office, where one of the teachers is hidden after hearing a heater. Eunji becomes extremely hungry and begins consuming fish alive, which is similar to sushi but more drastic. When the teacher notices that she is not feeling well, he comes up behind her and strikes her. But this ends up being the worst error he has ever made. He is turned on by Eunji, who then eats him. As the teacher becomes a mindless zombie, she vomits up. From a great distance, Namare can hear Eunji throwing up in the classroom. Her senses have become more acute, and she can even hear her fellow students' pulse racing quickly, indicating that the student is experiencing fear. Gwinam is still alive in the meantime. He hears a noise while sipping water and chooses to look into it. When asked, he joins a senior student who is hiding beneath a car. In an attempt to get Gwinam to run to a car and drive it close to him so they can flee, the senior begins bossing him around. Gwinam pretends to do as the senior says because he dislikes being told what to do. Abruptly, He snatches the senior and drags him from his hiding spot. GWI intends to punish him by causing pain by folding the senior's wrist. The zombies are drawn to the senior as he begins to yell. The senior is finally given over to the zombies by GWI. Returning to the classroom, Zhou thinks that helping the children escape and reach the roof will improve their chances of surviving. In another scene, two zombies interrupt her father as he attempts to tend to his injuries. Thankfully, he locates a shotgun to stop the zombies and escapes. Hari and her crew, meanwhile, make the decision to try to break out of the gym. The other members of the group will have to use an improvised stretcher to carry the injured large lad. Zombies strike as soon as the pupils leave the gym, forcing them to go back inside. Detective Dayak and his officer, Hokail, are in the city getting ready to leave. To get to the high school and locate Lee's PC, they are hiding. They see the famous streamers standing by themselves on a roof as they ride through the winding lanes. The investigator starts to climb up but chooses to stop when the streamer signals for assistance. Riding away on the scooter is Hokail. The kids have divided the classroom into two sections by barricading the center. To attract the zombies, they open the door and turn on some music on the TV. On one end, they want to drag them in, and on the other, they want to get out. The zombies are pressing hard, though, and their plan isn't going as smoothly as they had hoped. The congresswoman is informed in the military camp that she will not be given any preferential treatment due of her position and that she will have to remain confined for a longer period of time. Since they were placed in the same cell, the militants also accuse her of aiding Soju in escaping. According to the lawmaker, Soju is a parent attempting to fulfill his obligations to his daughter. There may be survivors, so she begs them to send a chopper to Hyacinth High School. The optimum line of action must be decided by the general and his major. "Do you have any helicopters available?" the general asks. The general insists that they summon a Black Hawk and send it to inspect the high school when the major denies this. Professors and medical professionals in the military should keep working to dissect the virus and understand its nature in the interim. It's time for the pupils to run toward the roof when they return to the high school and discover that the corridor has been cleared. A helicopter is flying toward the school as the children rush upstairs. The harassed boy hears the other students hammering on the door leading to the terrace as he witnesses it. The boy chooses not to open the door since he wouldn't mind if everyone perished. As Hyuk and Chong-san fend back the zombies, some of the pupils inside are attempting to open the door. As more zombies charge at them, their work gets harder and harder. Two soldiers locate the tormented youngster as the chopper descends on the balcony, and the children are making a valiant effort to smash down the door. The child deceives them by claiming that everyone in the school is dead when they ask him if anyone else is still alive. The fact that GWI Nam is still alive presents Hyuk and Chong-san with yet another challenge. He and the other zombies have heard them, and he is desperate for retribution. When Eunji wanders outside the school amid the confusion, she runs into several of the children who used to harass her. These have all become zombies. She also despises the instructor she bit earlier because he did little to support her during the bullying. Eunji thinks that by setting the entire school on fire and murdering everyone, she may realize her ambition. She quickly returns inside and burns the school down. Namare is furious because GWI Nam is mistreating the students upstairs. She becomes stronger when her anger triggers the virus inside of her. She throws GWI Nam back to the other zombies after grabbing him by the throat. The pupils miss the rescue helicopter as a result of a sequence of circumstances. As the fire spreads across the school, the troops put the child who has been bullied onto the Black Hawk. As a result, the terrace door automatically opens and the fire alarm goes off. The chopper is already taking off as the students hurry to the terrace. The bullied child does not speak to the crew of the helicopter when he sees them. After failing in his attempt to break through the door, GWI Nam chooses to leave and find a different way down. Eunji locates a bicycle on the ground and rides off. The kids must now spend some time talking about their behavior. Since the chopper has already attempted to look for survivors, Chong-san fears that no one will return for them. The children's initial action is to write a big SOS signal using the items nearby. Everyone else is battling for their life in the meantime. Daek assists the streamer by using tape to brace and lessen the agony in Soju's leg as he hides inside a new building. In an attempt to divert the zombies, The investigator makes noise. Ho-cheol arranges a bus and drives it to the location to pick them up, seemingly at the ideal moment. After some drama, the streamer and the detective board the bus, and Ho-cheol removes them. The kids are aware that it will get chilly on the terrace as nightfall draws near. They rub sticks together in an attempt to start a fire, but it's a challenging trick to learn. Namare is fortunate to have a lighter, which simplifies everything. Later, when Ho-cheol is operating the bus through the streets, he strikes Eun-ji by accident as she crosses the street. Unaware of her infection, Dake checks on her. He is shocked to learn that the girl is unharmed by the bus. A military unit quickly locates them all. After opening fire initially, the soldiers recognize that these people are survivors. Returning to the gym, Hari establishes a rapport with Min-ji and imparts some knowledge on bows. The music classroom has been cleared out in the interim, and Yoon goes to do a quick check outside the tiny chamber. After grabbing the camera, she locks the door behind her and returns inside. She smiles at what the other pupils say as she begins to watch their video. She makes the decision to join them and change her mindset. She picks up a bag and begins packing it full of drinks and snacks. However, when she does, she recalls all the negative things that occurred as a result of her. She caused Jong's death first, and subsequently her professor's death as a result of her attempts to assist him. Yeon is perplexed and unable to make up her mind. She ultimately determines that she must join the others. After packing a bag with supplies, she leaves the room, but that's where her luck stops. GW bites her after spotting her. Like the majority of them, Yoon becomes a mindless zombie even after being attacked by an advanced zombie. The children are lounging by the fire on the roof. If they survive the ordeal, they decide to get together once more and spend some time by the fire. As they talk about amusing topics, Chong confesses his love for Anjo. The fact that she has clearly friend-zoned him makes the girl feel uncomfortable. They have a private conversation. Chong-san requests that she put it out of her mind for the time being and talk about their relationship once they are secure. Meanwhile, GW manages to cling to a plastic pipe and climb to the top. GW seizes Anjo and threatens to hurt her, but his true target is Chong-san. They both lunge toward one another. GW attempts to repay him in kind by pinning him down. One by one, he attempts to extract Chong-san's eyes. None of the children are strong enough to handle GW despite their best efforts to assist Chong-san. Like Hercules, GW pushes them back even when they all attempt to stop him. Namare becomes enraged and attacks him with a burning piece of wood. But that is still insufficient to prevent GW GW eventually finds herself close to the terrace's edge. The conflict ends when Namare uses her unnatural power to grip Hyuk's body and flip him over as he tries to toss him from there. Haya wipes the blood from her lips and checks on her. When Anjo sees them, she becomes envious. She doesn't like Chong-san, despite the fact that he checks on her. Sadly, GW is still alive and is gradually reassembling his body. The general is excited to hear what the experts at the camp will find out about the virus. The major approaches and tells his superior that he has a source in the government, despite the fact that the procedure is proceeding. He was informed that in order to contain the virus in Hyacinth, the administration is thinking of taking more drastic steps. The detective and his officer are being questioned concurrently. Before the troops discover them, Dake tells them that they were on a quest to locate the professor's laptop. The virus was generated by the professor, who used a camera to record what he saw. His laptop is where those files are kept. After grabbing a bite to eat outside, the school's harassed student meets up with Eun-ji, a girl who tells him that she sparked a fire at the high school. Since he observes that Eun-ji is not acting like herself, the boy is not happy with the news. The boy offers her his food since the girl accuses him of being hungry. But Eun-ji would rather eat something else because she isn't hungry for that kind of food. The students at the high school are attempting to make sense of all that is going on, but it is not an easy task. When the world settles back down to its normal pace, Namare says they should continue to be friends. When Namare announces that she has heard something, the children suddenly leap to their feet. Before long, they can all hear the chopper coming. It goes without saying that they are overjoyed because they think they have finally been saved. Soldiers, however, descend onto the terrace and order the children to kneel. The soldiers take their own temperature. Namore's body temperature is 2 degrees lower than the rest of the children, who all have normal body temperatures. The soldiers provide her a warm blanket, since they are unable to understand that she is a zombie. The children want to go, but the soldiers tell them to remain. Before the children are allowed to depart, they must complete their assignment. The children in the gym heard the helicopter sound at the same moment. The large lad has broken his leg, and they have to carry him, so it will be challenging for them to get out of the gym and up to the school's roof. Lee's laptop is located when the troops zipline down to his office. While the other troops shoot at the zombies, one of them opens it using cracking software and copies its data. A sergeant storms into the general's office back at the camp as everything is going smoothly on this front. He plays the broad video footage of the tormented youngster being eaten by Unji. The general is now aware that not all infected people behave like the other zombies. They are actually very similar to people. Meanwhile, the troops are preparing their gear on the roof, so they may use the automated zipline system to hoist the pupils onto the helicopter. They are taken aback, though, when the general calls to advise them to leave the children behind. While the kids are unaware of what is happening, the troops must carry out their orders. When the children attempt to approach the troops, they are shot as a warning because the guys have been told to shoot them if they approach. The students are left behind as the soldiers eventually return to the helicopter and take off. Meanwhile, the gym staff manages to go outdoors. They think they will be saved, so they're glad to see the helicopter. The children attempt to get the helicopter's attention as it spins around. They are visible when the light from the helicopter strikes them. The soldiers are forced to leave these children behind. In another scene, a man who is out on the streets unexpectedly approaches Soju. The man is in a panic since he doesn't know how to deal with the circumstances. In addition to being pregnant, his wife was hurt in the vehicle. It appears that she is not in a fit state to exit the car and flee. Soju knows he can't do much to help the man, but he still needs help. After giving the man his food and water, he flees in the direction of the high school. The general is told at the camp that the virus is a cunning one that is developing and changing shapes. The general declares that they should confine the hyacinth people for lengthier periods of time until they are certain they are not infected, because this complicates matters. It is assumed that the politicians and other city dwellers are segregated in different rooms. The children are content when it begins to rain back on the terrace. At last, they are able to sip and feel the water on their skin. The zombies are struggling to cope with the sound of thunder, though, and the weather is not favorable for them. GWI Nam reaches for a curtain and drapes it over his head. After noticing Namare, Chong-san has an idea. He asks his classmate Jun whether he believes they can reach the mountain and get past the school. The zombies can go throughout the school in silence since they can't withstand the rain because it interferes with their senses. When Chong-san shares his concept with the other pupils, they appear to support it. After cautiously navigating the school's hallways, they eventually emerge outside. The Archer crew must have thought of the same thing at the same moment since they go outdoors as well. Everything is going well for Chong's group, but when the young man notices his mother looking at him, everything changes. He envisions her as kind as she was when she was human, despite the fact that she is a zombie. Since Chong is powerless to stop her, the zombie attacks him. The zombie is attacked by Chong's buddies to help him, but Chong has gone insane and attacks them for attacking his mother. Chong-san is pulled back by Hyuk-soo as the other lads immobilize the undead. The lads halt when Chong yells his mother's name. Uncho tries her hardest to pull Chong away from his inner turmoil and bring him back to reality. Chong shouts, "Mom," as he flees and the undead follow him. One of the girls stutters a few steps away and hits the floor. When she sees the zombies coming, she decides to leave her companion behind, just as she is ready to assist her. Fortunately, Woo, another student in the group, saves the girl, but they are still in danger. Hari uses her arrows to kill several of the undead, but fortunately the Archer teen steps in and saves them. Meanwhile, the girl who deserted her companion finds herself in a bad situation. She appears to be seeing zombies based on her expression. All of the surviving individuals eventually enter the basketball court, but they are met with an unexpected surprise. There are zombies everywhere throughout the court. The students divided into 3 unequal groups as they ran around trying to save themselves. While the huge boy is devoured by the zombies, the archer boy locks himself in a different room. The remaining pupils enter what appears to be the coach's storage area. Dae-soo expresses regret to Chung-san for earlier harming his zombie mother. He didn't know her identity. Devastated, Chung-san drops to his knees. At the same time, the girl who found herself in a zombie-infested open field is devoured and becomes a zombie herself. The commander in the military camp is watching a video of Professor Lee, who claims that he is attempting to develop a viral antidote, but that nothing is working. The general is aware that the entire world could be in jeopardy unless he finds a different route. Meanwhile, the head of the congresswoman's political party pays her a visit and hands out some resignation documents. In order for her to leave the party, he needs her to sign them. The children are sleeping in the new room they use as a shelter, but Soju is still pacing the streets. Chung-san wakes up next to Eunjo. Although they feel a little uncomfortable together, Eunjo urges her friend that they should relax. After they are secure, they have already decided to talk about their relationship. Now that he has reached the jungle, Soju is marking his return path with ribbons in case he gets lost. Chung-san is back in the room talking to Hari, who turns out to be his sister. Dae-soo comes over to them and begins to open up to Hari. Despite the fact that she is a senior, he still has feelings for her. In an attempt to decompress, Hari jumps up and begins pounding him. GWI-nam ascends the building's roof, once more at the same moment, but this time he can't find anyone because the students have already departed. When Hyuk notices some balls flying around in the gym, he has a fresh idea. By forcing the zombies back until they reach the door, they can move across the court by forming a moving shield out of the steel boxes. They should be okay if they merely build a shield around themselves and use other materials to strike the zombies because, as far as they know, they are not smart enough to climb. After speaking with his men one more time, the general declares that they must act. They will find a means to launch a huge attack on the undead after clearing some neighboring areas. However, they should also figure out how to get them all together in one location in order to accomplish that. The pupils head to the court after getting their moving shield ready. The zombies pile up and some of them hang over the shield, but they do not directly climb above it. The children try to push them away, but June gets bitten all of a sudden. There is nothing Minji can say to help him feel better, despite her best efforts to soothe him. June chooses to assist his friends before he changes since he is aware of what is ahead for him. As additional zombies attack him, he leaps out of the shield and drags them away. June informs his friends that they must return home after firmly pulling the shield. In a presentation to the commander at the camp, the government official urges him to halt the virus's spread. Even if one zombie manages to flee the city, his people's prepared simulation indicates that the entire nation is in danger. Soju continues to attempt to go to the high school in the meantime, but he must avoid more zombies pursuing him. The students make it to the exit door at the same moment, but it is locked. Hyuk tries his hardest to shatter it, but he is unable to do so since he must assist the other pupils in repelling the zombies. Eunjo rushes to the door, but it opens unexpectedly, revealing her father on the other side. As the other children flee the court, Eunjo collapses into his arms. Meanwhile, GWI-nam finds the archer boy in the other chamber. At first, he says he won't harm him, but then, guilty by association, he follows the youngster around after catching a whiff of Chung-san. Soju advises the students that running to the mountain and then attempting to reach the military refuge is their best option. They should race to the tennis court and then across the forest to reach the summit. Things are rarely as simple as they seem, even as the gang rushes to the tennis court. They are followed to the court by the zombies, some of whom manage to get inside. As he shouts for the kids to exit through the other gate, Soju ignites a flare to grab their attention. Since there are zombies everywhere, Soju snatches his whistle and lets out a noise, which makes the undead follow him. While his daughter waits for him, he battles several of them, but Soju is aware that he cannot leave without bringing the students down with him. He closes the gate after deciding that giving his life is the wisest course of action. Eunjo sees her father's hand, but she is also astonished to see him remain. Soju calls out loudly for the students to flee, drawing the zombies to him in the process. More zombies are waiting for the pupils when they arrive at a newly constructed school building. Fortunately, they act quickly and seek cover on the scaffolding outside. Eunjo reaches for a steel pipe out of rage. While Hari tries to comfort the girl, Chong-san removes it from her hands because he has no idea what she'll do with it. Ironically, Soju encounters Chong-san's mother after becoming a zombie. Gwinam, meanwhile, is curious about Chong-san's location. The boy archer doesn't know. Although the archer boy claims that he briefly met other younger classmates at random, Gwinam is able to sense Chong. Gwinam ultimately chooses to bite him. As he transforms into a zombie, the archer youngster tries to strike him back, but is unable to do so. Minji and Hari make the decision to glance about in an attempt to figure out how to get off the scaffolding. It would be preferable if they left the building without going back inside if they were going to do so. Gwinam chooses to follow the students once he can detect their scent as he steps outside the court at the same moment. The military scientists discover at the camp that the undead react to certain sound frequencies. They may direct the zombies in any direction they choose by using these frequencies. Namare is losing her self-control on the scaffolding. A voice in her head instructs her to bite Hyuk to cope with the surge when she sees him asleep. She bites her own hand. Namare. Hyuk-soo awakens and becomes aware of what has transpired. He tells her that since he will likely be like her in the future, she can bite him the next time she feels hungry. From a distance, Namare learns that the military plans to destroy the city to eliminate as many zombies as possible. The building they are now in is one of the exact areas where they want to concentrate the undead. In fact, the soldiers deploy sound-activated drones to hurt the zombies and move them to their desired location. When the students understand they must depart, Gwinam interrupts the celebration and begins assaulting them. Although he is able to bite Chong, the drone sound injures him, giving Chong the chance to push him off the scaffolding. The general gives his men the command to prepare the bombs once the zombies have been gathered in the appropriate places. Chong-sin bids his companions farewell after realizing he will become a zombie. After exchanging name tags with Anjo, he dashes inside the structure to entice the zombies to leave. He did not even give his sister an embrace. His comrades are able to safely exit the building when Chong-san captures all of the zombies. The issue is that Gwinam is still alive and is searching for Chong after he lures the zombies into falling into an empty elevator space. At last, the boys get to meet. It's time for them to engage in one final conflict. Nam is informed by Chong that he does whatever he does to feel significant. Being neither a good student nor a bully, he was nothing in his life. He was merely a person who used to obey directions. Chong takes a handful of sand and hurls it at Gwinam's eyes. Nam gets the retribution he has been seeking when, in spite of his small trick, he pins him down and prods his eye. The 4 targets are then targeted, and the bombs begin to fall. There are thousands of zombies killed. Though it's unclear if they will live through the massive explosion, Chong seizes Gwinam and uses him as a shield. The bombings are finished, and the general is notified. The man feels that has fulfilled his obligation. Since he has been up for a long time and needs to sleep, he puts his major in charge. The general pauses as he crosses the hallway to speak with a congresswoman. He lets her know about the assault. The general himself had few choices, but the politician does not take it lightly. Despite doing what he believes to be right, he feels a great deal of guilt for the attack, as will soon be revealed. He is also aware that the zombies may have killed some humans. Wearing his uniform, the general records a video of himself claiming full responsibility for the attack. Then, he makes a quick phone call to his wife. He finally reaches for his rifle and does the unimaginable. The city is destroyed in half. Between other bodies is Chong's body. As a testament to his unwavering affection, Anjo's name tag is displayed next to his body. Looking out, the investigator and his officer ponder how many people have died since this illness first appeared. The children in the forest gaze back, but they are powerless at this point. They must save themselves and go on. Anjo's dearest friend is always on her mind. She makes the decision to return to the building and seek out Chong. He is nowhere to be seen when she yells his name. Namare comes over and gives her a hug. Anjo needed emotional assistance. She lost both her father and her best friend yesterday. To permanently clean the city, military personnel are stationed in the streets in the interim. Buildings are inspected before being classified as safe or unsafe. The students are lost again in the forest, but they can see the ribbons that Soju used to find his way. Thus, they pursue them until they reach the city. The young pupils can only see death as they stroll through the streets. Namare stops them and reminds them that there are zombies approaching, as if that weren't enough. Again, the pupils must fight with any weapon they can find. Namare, who is quite powerful, battles with her bare hands while Hyuxi uses a shovel. Again, chaos breaks out. A zombie attacks Hari behind her back, but Wu dodges it and is bitten instead of her. Wu receives assistance from the rest of the group, but it is already too late. Hari prevents Min-ji from impaling him, despite her desire to do so. Wu soon becomes a zombie and loses the ability to identify his buddies. Despite everyone's emotional shock, Namare fulfills her obligations. She murders Wu by snapping his head. That is a better fate than living a life of zombie wandering. Beiso sobs while resting on Hyuk's shoulder. Hari is out of control and furious. Namare releases her grip on the bow. They're still in danger, so she attempts to reassure her. Namare sees the blood on Hari's face as she speaks to her and becomes aware that her need is growing greater. Namare can't help herself, but the group must flee. She wants to bite her companions while she watches them. She must make the difficult choice to remain with the group as a result. After realizing that Namare had abandoned them, Hyuksu and Anjo make the decision to find her. Namare is attempting to consume a zombie when they discover her. Namare jumps on her to bite her when Anjo speaks to her. Hyuk reaches for a shovel as Anjo struggles to fend off her teeth, but he is unable to strike the girl he loves. Namare manages to regain consciousness and breaks down in tears upon realizing what she has been attempting to do. She makes the decision to flee after realizing that her own companions are not safe in her presence. Hyuksa makes an unsuccessful attempt to stop her. Namare is desperate because she doesn't know what the future would bring. She's going to become a zombie? Will she eventually give in to her cravings? The pupils reach the military camp. The children are now aware that they are at last secure, even if the soldiers initially point their guns at them. They see flashes of their exploits. Everybody they lost while traversing the hallways. She is spotted by her father's companion. His partner's death saddens him, but he is glad she is okay. In order to learn more about what transpired and how the virus spread across their school, the military officers question the pupils while they are in quarantine. Now, for months later, things are different. The virus has been stopped. Authorities believe that the pathogen was never able to escape the city. Since it is now known that the quarantined individuals are not infectious, they are ultimately allowed to go outside. Anjo breaks out of the camp one night and visits a location in the bush where people have left presents and ribbons for their departed loved ones. Something Anjo notices piques her interest. She tells Hyuksu she thinks Namare is still alive when they meet the following morning. The children get together and leave the camp together that evening. They come into a fire at their old high school while strolling through the forest. They choose to go to the building since it is imperative that they verify whether Namare is the one who started the fire. They discover Namare is still alive as they reach the roof. She expresses her longing for her buddies. Now that things are beginning to return to normal, Anjo wants her to accompany them. No one will recognize her infection. Namare, though, is unable to accompany them. She still has some tasks to complete. She needs to assist those who are similar to her. After saying hello to her companions, Namare leaps from the rooftop, leaving them to speculate about what lies next.